we're eager to learn. So what I'm trying to do is I come out of military readiness, and so we do a lot with how do we ensure that our troops are ready for anything.
Right.
Well, anything starts to get pretty complex, and so I started seeing there were a lot of creative ways to look at federal dollars. And so I left and said, I want to do national readiness, not just military readiness. And one of the things that we're starting with is the environment. And to me, the ability to sustain yourself and create these even smaller gardens is a huge part of that.
So when we started, we had, we're going to walk down there, we had a little plot. It was like 3/4 of an acre. And we kind of didn't really, to be honest with you, we didn't really have a plan. Like we said, well, we're just going to start growing stuff. And there was a club called UGArden that really kind of ran the garden to begin with. So the group here actually kind of created a different, format, and they went and reached out to like Starbucks and some of the submarine sandwich shops, and we have a Trader Joe's and a Fresh Market and Earth Fair, which is a regional Whole Foods type store. And they contacted all those places and said, would you give us your leftover, your day old bread, or a bag of oranges, and maybe one orange is bad, but so they kind of took on more of a, the idea was food waste, right? It was like the food that got wasted from the dining halls, but since the dining halls wouldn't let them have access, they just sort of found a different source of food waste. And so they gather up all this food, and we give them fresh produce, and they go to a kitchen that's, it's like a certified kitchen, but it's for a senior citizens retirement home place. And those people let them in their kitchen, and they go in there and cook meals. And then they have a delivery system, so they sort of partnered with our Meals on Wheels, because actually Athens-Clarke County is one of the poorest counties in the country, believe it or not. And people don't think about that because the university's here. It's like, well, but we have we have all the negative demographics here in this county. Working poor, unemployment's not bad, but it's a lot of working poor or people on food stamps, or all of our schools are all Title I. So my kids got free lunches because they didn't need it, but it was easier to give free lunch to everybody than to sort out, because there were so many that were eligible.
Right.
So,
yeah, that's a misnomer that's missed oftentimes, is that the act of assessment costs.
Yes.
And so sometimes it is actually cheaper to make a blanket decision than it is to determine who are the singular here and there ineligible individuals.
At the time, there was a wait list for Meals on Wheels of several families, and there was a group that they targeted, and we have a council on aging here in town that kind of oversees the Meals on Wheels program. And they have this group of senior citizens that are targeted. They call them grandparents raising grandchildren, but it's grandparents that are raising grandchildren but can't claim them for social services because they're not the
Legal
guardian. Right. So
right.
There's a parent out there somewhere that's either in the home or not, but they're the ones taking care of this kid, and it puts them, kind of stretches them out. So that's their target group. And I think right now there's about 60 families or so that they make these deliveries to, and what they deliver are they make squash or soup or whatever, and it's not so much of a meal as it's just stuff in containers that can be heated up.
Right.
And then they kind of piece their own meal together, and then our portion of it is the fresh produce. So every week they either get collards or kale or carrots or something, just something fresh each week to go with this kind of delivery system that they have. So that about a third of our produce goes to that program. And so we have an outreach program in all 4 of the middle schools here in Clarke County. And so we have an AmeriCorps Vista based at each of the 4 middle schools. And then we have a person that supervises them. And we started with just 1 Vista in 1 school. And then it went so well, we now have 4 Vistas, and then we have a supervisor. And what they do in the schools is each of the 4 middle schools has a garden.
Right.
Some of them have goats and chickens and fish and stuff, animals and stuff, and they all have a greenhouse. And the Vista person there actually helps. They do stuff like in the cafeteria, they do composting. They actually, at Clarke Middle School, we have a program where they collect all the uneaten fruit that's still whole, and they put it in a big bowl as the kids get ready to throw it in the trash can. And they chop it. There's actually a family and consumer sciences teacher at that school, and she takes all the produce and chops it up and makes fruit salad, or shoves an apple in each kid's backpack on the way home. But we basically sort of stop the throwaway, because a lot of kids, there's a mandatory fruit they have to have,
Right.
and a lot of times it doesn't get eaten, so so we sort of caught that. But
who coordinates all of this? This is a master plan that you guys have going on here.
Yeah, it was all sort of this all began as kind of this 10 years ago, when right before we started that local food certificate. We have an Office of Service Learning on campus.
Okay.
And Shannon Wilder is a real she's been real kind of good about kind of instigating, and food just seemed like an obvious. First of all, it's popular. Everybody's interested in food, and there was a lot of people on campus that sort of were interested in working in that arena. So we had a series of these kind of workshops and seminars, and 1-minute presentations from faculty, and kind of trying to get everybody kind of together. And out of it came this campus kitchen, the idea for UGArden, or for that local food certificate, and then the idea for UGArden. And so the AmeriCorps Vistas are based out of that's where they have a coordinator person because they have like 9, I think, based now out of there, and that's where the campus kitchen program is based. And so they have someone at the Council on Aging. They have somebody that works with the food bank. They have somebody that works with this campus kitchen program. They have now we're starting a food shed program, and it's kind of an expansion of this and kind of branching out to the whole campus.
I'm just thinking reduced waste so far that you have almost like you think of using the whole animal.
Mm-hmm.
You've used the whole fruit.
Right.
Right?
Ideally, that's the
Yeah,
plan.
yeah, that is. Right, exactly. How do you optimize the use of everything so that everyone has what they need to sustain? I mean, if we're thinking outside the box and trying to figure out how do we create a set of capabilities and access for individuals who are working poor, one of them certainly could be, so what if it was imperfect?
Right, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This feeds your family, and it does so not just in an adequate way, but actually with the hearty nutrients that we need to access.
Yeah.
And so how do we educate at that level, and how do we then make that access possible?
This is not a good time to be pulling up. Yeah, see, they're not very big right now. It's actually it's called a tuber, but it'll swell up, and this will end up being about the size of like when you harvest it, it'll be like a chunk of ginger, like you find in the store,
Wow.
And
tell us the name again.
Sunchoke.
It says sunchoke.
Or Jerusalem artichoke. It's in the sunflower family. Sunflowers are also native to the United States, but and I pointed out just because one of the misconceptions, there's a lot of talk about like native plants and all this kind of stuff, and it turns out almost all the food that we eat is not native to the United States.
Yeah, because this is the only native.
This is the only one. Well, there's a short list. So there's sunflower, there's sunchoke, and then in the fruits it would be blueberries and cranberries and muscadine grapes and the grapes that grow in New York, not the wine grapes, and that's it. The list is kind of out. Most are grown using wood chips in either tubs, or like little plastic tubs that are on shelves in an indoor warehouse, or they're in plastic bags hanging from the ceiling, these long, skinny plastic bags. But this is what a small farmer would do, because this doesn't require an air-conditioned, heated, dehumidified, or humidified facility. You can just sort of grow them outdoors. But because of that, you have to wait. It's a cool season mushroom, so we stick the little plug in there, which is a plug of the root. You buy the roots, basically the mycelium. You buy them in a cluster growing in sawdust in a bag, and you drill a hole and you put a plug in, and then you cover it with wax, and then it takes 9 months. You do this in the wintertime, and then in September they'll all start popping out.
Wow.
But if you're in a warehouse, you can speed that up, because you can make it be cool. You can make it be warm and moist to get it to grow, because in order for them to pop out, the root system, the biology of them is it has to occupy the space they're in. So the fruiting is partially a response to like full occupation by the root system.
We just wanted to close out by asking two questions. Number one, what is it that people could do to follow what you all are doing here?
If they were trying to build a model like us of kind of a community type farm, I think one of the things we've learned is you really need to know your community, and we're still learning. We've actually tried like 4 different ways to distribute produce. We tried a produce stand out at a low-income housing development. and that was a flop. We tried a CSA, which is like a community supported agriculture, where you pay like so many dollars a box. We tried a program where we charged $5 for a box that would normally sell for like $25, trying to target low income families. That was a bust. We've had a lot of little failures trying to figure out how to share you wouldn't think it'd be that hard a thing to do, to share produce in the community, but to do it in a way that's not, we can always give it to the food bank, and nothing against the food bank. We'll always give produce to the food bank. There are always people that are in emergency need, but trying to get people to kind of step that one step up, or maybe they pay a little for it, or they maybe know a little more about what to do with it, so they want different types of things. That's a real tough one, and we're still figuring it out, quite honestly. If we didn't have that campus kitchen program that sort of serves as our connection to the community and funneling the produce, we would struggle to find a good, effective way to actually share the produce like that. We've been very fortunate. We've been able to take advantage of the university's resources, but also there's been a lot of creative people that have flowed through here that have come up with ideas. That somebody built this system for us here. We got the volunteer building the compost sifter and stuff, so we've been able to take advantage of a lot of other people's brains, and it's not all just like one person.
Yeah. Community contact makes all the difference, right? And collective creativity helps a lot. If there's one thing that at the national level would be beneficial, I know you've gotten some grants. Mm-hmm. Are there other activities that would be beneficial, maybe along the lines of this creative collective? Would those kinds of activities help here as well?
I know that we've relied a lot on AmeriCorps Vista, for example, for young volunteers to come through here, and we have a volunteer coordinator. Actually, we have 2 summer AmeriCorps Vistas that are just working just for 2 months in the summer, and then we get a year-round person who helps us with volunteer recruitment. The Food Corps program, which is sort of a complementary program to AmeriCorps, I think they're real valuable for at least getting you jump started, because you've got to start with something, and you get young people with a lot of energy, and they don't cost very much. And it's a short term, so you're not taking advantage of them for the long term. I do think the grants help bring people together. We just wrote another grant to expand that Grow It Know It program. We got a grant 2 years ago to expand it into an adjoining county nearby, and we just applied for another grant to take it to 2 other counties just south of here, to try to expand the program. And that kind of money helps, again, just sort of get you started. Here in Clark County, we applied for a grant and didn't get the grant, but we'd already done all the kind of the legwork and research. So we said, hey, let's just do it anyway. And we were very fortunate that we got the school system to kind of pony up and pay for part of it, which is pretty rare. It's pretty hard to get school systems to shell out money for stuff like that, which proves how valuable it is. But if you can get started with a grant and then demonstrate the value, then the buy-in from the community or the school system's probably a lot greater. So I do think those kinds of programs help a lot.
Very good. Well, thank you so very much.
Yeah.
This is amazing.